Hi everybody, this is Aaron from IndieDungeon.com, and today I'm doing a tutorial on our rock creation workflow. Right now we're looking at the final product, and this is a low poly model, and I'm rendering it in real time using the Marmoset toolbag. So the workflow is going to start off in 3DCoat using Voxel sculpting. We're going to move into ZBrush, and we're going to use Modo to do the texturing mainly. We're going to use Crazy Bump and a little bit of Photoshop as well. So I'm starting off here using primitives in 3DCoat. One of the tools I like to use is this freeform cube. So right now here I'm just creating the very basic shape of this rock, which I want to be a craggy, mountainous rock. So I'm speeding this up a little bit. So yeah, my initial idea was to have lots of facets on this rock, so that's what I'm going for here. Just adjusting the lighting a little bit here in 3DCoat. And then I'm starting right in with the plane tool. And the plane tool is nice because it can give you a little bit more natural looking cracks, which I'll be starting into a little bit. But you can just go ahead and cut right in. You can adjust the depth of the tool if you want. Adjust the size. Doing a little bit of smoothing. And what I really like about 3DCoat plane tool is how it'll actually show you the plane, which is the red icon here. And it will actually show you on the 3D model where it will slice. And we are slicing right into voxels, so there's no need to worry about polys folding up or distorting. So now I'm starting to carve in some forms into the rock. Since from this point on it's pretty much a subtractive sculpting process. And the plane will always align using right mouse button to the camera. And you can see there are some artifacts left over, some lines in the cutting process that are left over from the tool. And I'm not worried about those because I'm going to be smoothing those out in ZBrush using um, clay polish. And I'm speeding it up a little bit here. And you can change the size of the plane by upping the radius. You can use the forward bracket or reverse bracket buttons to do that as well. So again, the only tool I've been using so far is the plane tool. I think it gives the cracks a little more natural appearance. Saving it real quick. Giving it a little bit of weathering here. little bit of smoothing here and there. Mainly, I don't want to use smoothing too much, especially on the edges, because I want to preserve all the really hard edges here. Using cutoff here, just to cut the bottom. I'm using stencils and extrude. I'm inverting the extrude tool and using the stencil just to put a little bit of weathering on here. One thing I like to do as far as surfacing is do a little bit in 3DCoat and the majority of it in ZBrush. Gives me a little bit more of a natural look. A little more random when you combine the two different surfacing tools, two different apps. Just speeding this up a little bit. Doing some scraping now, using the scrape tool. Just getting some of these really ragged edges smoothed down a little bit. Adding a little bit more randomization. So for the most part, I'm happy for this. Happy about this rock. I'm going to export this object. Not going to reduce polys. And then we're going to import into ZBrush. The first thing I'm going to do is go into geometry and clay polish. I'm going to close the holes first and modify topology. And we're going to go clay polish. And you can see that the artifacts from a lot of the carving have been reduced. But it did keep my planes and my hard edges. So that's a really nice tool. I'm going to use the Orb Cracks brush, and I'm going to accentuate some of the depth in some of these cracks. Give it a little bit of randomization. There's a little bit of poly folding in these. It's creasing a little bit in there, so what I'm going to do is Dynamesh this. So now we're getting much better results. There's no poly folding and creasing, and this is the result I was looking for here. So I'm just really just accentuating the depth of these cracks here. We'll get a nicer look in Modo when we go to bake the textures. Not doing it in every single crack. Really just the larger, deep ones. Now I'm using trim adaptive brush to weather down some of the hard edges here. I'm going to speed it up a little here. This adds some facets to the rock. Makes it look a little more realistic, I think. So now I'm going to be using the drag rect brush and going to be adding some cracks using alphas. So I have some cracks already saved out here. You want to adjust the intensity down a little bit to around 15. And I try to align some of these cracks with the existing cracks as I'm going. You want to make sure you're on Z sub. So what I'm doing here is I'm masking one side because these cracks sometimes they will go right through the model in ZBrush. I'm not sure why that happens, but that can help you if you do encounter that problem with the cracks going through to the other side. Just mask it. Loading a different alpha here. These are still cracks, but just randomizing the cracks a little bit. And these I'm going to adjust the intensity up to give them more depth into the model. So the intensity is the 32 on these. Just saving it real quick. As the high model. I'm going to be adding noise and a little more surfacing. First I want to have a general noise, which is going to be essentially the actual texture of the rock. Not necessarily weathering, but the actual texture. So you can adjust the strength of the different parameters there. Once I'm happy with that, I need to apply to mesh. And you need to make sure to apply that to the mesh or it will not actually exist. So now I'm using a preset that I've created called Soft Rough. And I'm going to edit that a little bit. And this one has a little more weathering to it. And I'm adjusting the scale here a little. And I want it to be a little more deep. So I'm going to adjust the strength a little. And I'm pretty happy with that. Just want to take a look at it and make sure to apply to mesh. So I'm pretty happy with this. Now if you go to deformation, you can do lots of interesting other effects to the rock if you want. Twist it and make it look alien or whatever you need to accomplish. That's not really what I'm going for here. I kind of want this to look realistic, so I'm just going to stretch it a little bit. Give it a little more height. I'm exporting this out as the high-res model. And now I'm going to need to make a low-res version. So I want this to be about 3,000 polys. Need to pre-process it first. So I'm going to go to pre-process current. Once it's pre-processed, I'm going to type in 4,000 polys. Actually, I'm going to decimate current. So there's my low-res model. You can see the polys. I'm happy with that, so I'm going to export that as the low-res model. And next we're going to try to create UVs in here. This doesn't always work in ZBrush, but sometimes it does a good job. So I'm going to turn off symmetry and I'm going to hit unwrap all in UV master, and then I'm going to hit flatten to take a look at it. And these UVs look pretty good to me for the most part. I'm going to unflatten that again. I'm going to export this out as the low-res model. Now it's got UVs. Now we're going to go into Modo. I'm going to hit the model tab and I'm going to import the high-res and the low-res model. And if you just hit A, you can see the entire model. And I'm going to check the size of these. Normally they are, when they're imported, they're much too big. So this is about 600 meters tall. That's not really as big as I want it to be. So I'm going to go over here and scale it down to 5%. And 30 meters is good. I seem to get better results when it's a lower size in Modo here. So now I'm creating a new material for the high-res mesh. I'm just going to call it high stone. Diffuse, I'm going to adjust this. Hit OK. I'm going to turn off the low-res model and I'm going to go over to Render tab. And you can see the lighting now and how it's going to affect the model here. And we're going to go ahead and start adjusting the light itself. I'm going to change this into a physical sun. I'm going to turn off the clamp. And at first it's going to blow everything out. The light is going to be extremely bright. And I'm going to bring in an environment. I'm going to go to the presets. And I'm probably just going to bring in this basic grass field here. Double click it. Go back over to the render tab. I'm going to click on the final color output. We're going to unclamp colors. And the white level here, we're going to adjust that up. Try to see how it looks at 20. Actually, I'm going to adjust that up to 40. So that's looking better. It's not blown out. I'm going to adjust the intensity of the environment itself now, so I get some environmental lighting. So you can see we've got some reflected light from the grass down there. You can bring in whatever environment you want. You can change the time of the sun here. Get your best result. So it's still blown out here, so I'm going to adjust this again. Crank that up to 80. And you can see we're starting to get a little cavitation effect here, a little ambient occlusion, but we're going to add more layers to enhance that. First thing I'm going to do is add a texture. This texture has some cracks on it. So I'm pretty happy with how this is looking. So we're going to go back to the high stone material. Just adjusting the roughness of the specularity. I'm going to add a layer to this material. Add layer processing occlusion. And I like to have at least 2 layers of occlusion. So this first one is going to be uniform. That's the type. And we're going to adjust the size of it. First I'm going to set it to multiply. In the blend mode. Then come down to occlusion distance. Adjust the bias and gain a little bit. Back to distance here, I'm going to change this to 2 meters. And you can see how it's starting to take shape here. I'm getting some ambient occlusion in the large crevices. And that's what I'm going for. I'm going to have 2 different versions. The first is going to be for the large cracks. The second layer will be for the smaller ones. So you can adjust this again up to 3 meters or whatever you think will look good. I'm going to adjust the opacity a little bit since I don't want it to be 100% opaque. I'm going to go down to 70. So you can see where it's filling in. And I'm pretty happy with that. So now I'm going to add another occlusion layer. And this one, the type is going to be set to convexity, or I'm sorry, concavity. Then we're going to change the blend mode to multiply. And now this one, I want to fill in the smaller cracks in the high-res model. And it's starting to do that at 200 millimeters. But it's not quite as enhanced as I want it to be. It's not quite as visible as I want it to be. So I'm going to make a couple adjustments to the parameters. That's with it off. And just so you can see the difference, that's with it on. It's just filling it in. But again, I want to make some adjustments. So I'm going to change that to 400 millimeters. Occlusion distance. Max cavity angle to 75. And I'm going to adjust the bias and gain a little bit. Make it stand out a little bit more. That's starting to look good. But I'm going to duplicate it. I'm going to duplicate that layer just to make it even more enhanced. So at this point, yeah, it's looking much better. All the cracks I brought in from the alpha are standing out now. And you can see if I turn off the texture here, you can really get a good look at what's happening here with the occlusion channels. I'm going to turn my texture back on. And I'm going to add another layer, another occlusion layer, and this one is going to be the convexity layer. And I'm going to change what's normally the dark to light, and I'm going to reverse these. Turn that to dark. And this is going to be highlights on the edge of the rock. And I'm going to change the alpha to 0 for the color too. So the only thing we're going to see is that we want to see is the bright highlights. And I'm going to change the blending mode to screen. Again, you can play with the occlusion distance to get different effects with the edge. At 1 meter here, it's starting to look good, starting to be more visible. And this gives it a really nice, realistic weathering effect. You can change the color of this. You can change the color of any of these channels, any of these occlusion channels. So I'm pretty happy with the way this is looking. Gonna enhance it a little more, I think. So I'm gonna change the occlusion distance to 1.5. And then I'm gonna drag that down underneath the crack occlusion layers. So that there's no shine over the cracks. So I'm happy with what I have here. So what we're going to do now is bake out the texture. So I'm going to bring back in the visibility of the low res mesh. I'm going to click on the low res mesh. And actually one of the things you got to do sometimes in Modo, if you go back to the render tab and you hit, this is where you can change the resolution to 2048 or whatever you want. And one of the things you may need to do is rename the UV map before you start. I think that's a bug in Modo, but I'm going to go back to render, bake out the texture. So this is a 2K map. Saving that out. Now what I want to do is create a normal map. So I'm going to go to the low res mesh, hit M, make a new material, then go over here to the low normal material that you just created, make a new image, name it whatever you need, 2K, hit OK. I'm going to come over here to the map and I'm going to apply normal to it. Then I'm going to go to render and bake from object to select a texture. And this is going to create a normal map for me. And you're going to need to adjust the output gamma to 0.55 and then save it out. So now I have Crazy Bump open, which is free for evaluation if you want to check that out. And I'm going to open the color map that we just baked. And this is going to allow you to choose which shape looks correct, and this one looks to have the normals inverted, so I'm going to go choose this one, which looks correct. And this is going to create its own normal map from the color map. And what I like to do, actually the whole purpose of this, is to use the higher details in the crazy bump normal map. I'm going to take that normal map and I'm going to blend it with the normal map that was created from Modo. It gives me a little bit better results than just using the one. So I'm going to adjust the intensity a little bit, do about 60. And what I really like to do is adjust the very fine detail. That gives me really good results here. Up to about 30. And then you can hit show 3D preview to see what it looks like. And I'm pretty happy with this. Pretty happy with the specularity. So we can check the specularity map, which I'm going to use as well. Looks good. This will also create a displacement if you need. So I'm okay with the way this looks. I'm going to go ahead and save it. Save all textures. And now what I'm going to do is use the normal map mixer to deal with just the normal map. So here we have the artificial normal map. And I'm going to add the legitimate normal map that's created from the 3D model, high-res model. So I'm going to hit add normals from file. Add the normal map we baked. So now you can see it's got both maps here and you can adjust the blending between them. $50 and $50 works pretty good, but you can adjust this to whatever you need, and you can show a 3D preview. So this gets some of the actual normal from the high-res model information as well as the artificial normal information. And I am pretty happy with the way this looks. So I'm going to save out just that normal, save normals. And now we are set, ready to apply our textures to whatever app you need. And I'm going to show you a preview that was done that is a live real-time preview. We're going to look at this in Marmoset Toolbag again. And again, this is a 4,000 try low-res model with all the high-res model textures baked out. And we're just previewing this real-time in Marmoset Toolbag with specular map, color map, normal map. Thanks for watching, everybody.